This is BBC Radio 4. And now, with the week in Westminster, here's Isabel Hardman of The Spectator.
One problem ministers are doing everything they can to avoid talking about is cladding. The row over who has to pay for work to replace cladding on buildings in England has been going on for more than a year, with leaseholders trapped in flats they cannot sell and receiving bills for tens of thousands of pounds. It came up again this week at Prime Minister's Questions. Here is Labour's Seema Malhotra.
Mr Speaker, almost 4 years on from the Grenfell tragedy, government inaction on the cladding crisis means that hundreds of thousands of leaseholders, including my constituents, remain trapped in unsafe, unsellable blocks. Ministers have promised at least 15 times that leaseholders won't have to pay unfair costs, but as ever with this government, there's been a lot of promises not matched by delivery. So will the Prime Minister finally act, end this injustice and come forward with a plan to fix the cladding crisis that does not burden leaseholders with the cost?
Now Labour has organised an Opposition Day debate on the matter for Monday afternoon and is pressuring Tory MPs to back its motion. Royston Smith is a Conservative MP who has been campaigning against the government's handling of the cladding crisis for some time. He joined Labour chair of the Housing, Communities and Local Government Select Committee, Clive Betts, who explained what the problem was.
The Grenfell fire disaster showed that cladding can be an important contributor to buildings like Grenfell being completely destroyed if the cladding on there is not of limited combustibility. That cladding wasn't. There's lots of other buildings have the same or very similar cladding which needs removing. That's the problem, and the problem then is how you raise the money to make sure it happens without putting the burden on the leaseholders who occupy the flats within the developments where this cladding exists.
And people are being hit by bills for tens of thousands of pounds. Royston, you've had constituents who've been badly affected by this?
Yeah, plenty of them, and it doesn't just stop with cladding, it goes beyond that to other fire safety measures which are now preventing people from selling their homes, or worse, being in homes that they are concerned or worried or scared that are not safe for them now.
Royston's absolutely right. This isn't just cladding. It's potentially the insulation on the buildings, it's missing fire breaks, it's faulty fire doors, it's dangerous balconies, it's a whole range of different things. When we looked at it as a committee, we said, yes, the government have found so far £1.6 billion, but our estimate, and it is an estimate, it's a guesstimate almost, because there haven't been any detailed surveys done of many of these buildings, is the total cost of putting right all the fire defects on buildings of this kind could run into £15 billion. That is a massive sum of money which clearly leaseholders can't pay for. Very often you can't get the developer who's disappeared or gone bankrupt to pay for it, and clearly the government and the Treasury are very loath to enter into something which is basically an open-ended cheque.
Royston, you've been campaigning on this for a while, often against your party's line. What do you think should happen?
Well, I think there are solutions that the government are starting to look at. First thing, which is why Stephen McPartland and I have put forward this amendment. The first thing we want the government to do is to say to leaseholders, you will not have to pay, you're not responsible. So the first thing is we want the government to say the leaseholders shouldn't pay and they won't have to pay. And beyond that, I think it's not beyond the wit of government to find a solution to this.
Why are ministers taking so long to say that?
I don't know. There are 3 points to this which I find inexplicable. One is the moral dilemma, the fact that people are in homes that they're frightened to be in. Secondly is the economic one. We're building more houses than ever before, and to have a vision to make sure that we can build enough houses so that people can have somewhere decent to live is a fine vision and ambition, but it's going to stall because people in these flats and buildings like this, which are lower down the rungs of the ladder, need to move on so that first-time buyers can buy to keep the market going. And there's also the political issue, if you like. You know, we are a country that encourages people to be part of the home-owning democracy. And we're now saying, really, that we're going to abandon tens of thousands of people that have done that, and we just shouldn't.
Clive, there has been some talk in recent days of loans being given to leaseholders to get them out of this situation. Does that get them out of this situation?
No, it doesn't. A loan, and this has been floated as an idea, and I've heard it said, well, of course, if it's very low interest or zero interest, the payments each month will be so minuscule they wouldn't notice them. The problem is, of course, a loan still has to be paid back, the capital has to be paid back at some point, and in many cases, the loan charge on a building would amount to as much as the building is worth now, and will put all those leaseholders immediately into negative equity. So loans are not a solution. What the government's got to do is to look for more money from the Treasury, of course they have, and maybe a contribution from industry as well, from all the development industry, which has engaged in building these properties over the years, and between the two, find a way forward so that leaseholders have to pay nothing at all. I chair a state committee which has Labour and Conservative MPs on it. We have been unanimous in all our reports, and we've produced quite a few of them since the Grenfell disaster, saying that yes, this cladding has to be removed. It has to be removed urgently, and it's taken far too long. But in the end, the leaseholders in those properties, who are not to blame for this, they bought their properties in good faith, they should not have to pay. We have been absolutely unanimous, cross-party, on that recommendation.
Royston, do you have a lot of colleagues on the Conservative side who are anxious about this? You mentioned the political implications of this. Are there a lot of MPs who are tuned into it as a problem and are raising it with their whips?
Yeah, there are. I mean, we've got 34 Conservative MPs that have signed our amendment. There would have been more than that, and there will be more than that, but there would have been more than that if we were in Westminster able to speak to some more of our colleagues. I mean, a lot of them don't realise that, you know, some have actually said to me, good luck with your amendment, but we don't have any of these high-rise buildings in our constituency. And I've had to go back and say, 18 metres is 6 stories, and forget just the 18 metres with cladding. You'll find that you have buildings that are not as high as that, but they've got combustible insulation, or they've got wooden balconies. You know, it is in every constituency. So I think that more and more our colleagues are seeing that this is not just localised in some areas, but it's sort of pretty much everywhere. And it's just, you know, it's just the right thing to do. I'm not asking the Treasury to find more money again. We all know how difficult that's been. I'm asking them to find a solution, and if that be a levy on future developments, so be it. But it can't be on the leaseholders, who are the innocent ones in all of this.
Royston Smith and Clive Betts discussing how the government could fix the cladding crisis.